The Menéndez brothers, Lyle and Erik Menéndez, are infamous for the 1989 murders of their parents, Jose and Kitty Menéndez, in their Beverly Hills home. The case gained massive media attention due to the brutal nature of the killings and the shocking defense the brothers mounted during their trial. On August 20th, 1989, Lyle, 21, and Erik, 18, shot their parents with shotguns while they sat in their living room. Jose was shot multiple times, and Kitty was shot in the face. Erik is now 51 years old and is now in the Donovan Correctional Facility. Lyle, who is now 55 years old, is also in prison. Erik mentions that he is now older, but reflects on things that were never shared with the public. Even though he is separated from his brother, he believes they are still deeply connected. Lyle echoes this sentiment, saying that despite being estranged for 34 years, they continue to feel a strong bond with one another. On Sunday, August the 20th, 1989, around 11:47 p.m., police responded to a shooting after a neighbor reported hearing gunshots. Joan Vander Molen, Kitty's sister, received a shocking call from her brother, Brian, informing her of Kitty and Jose Menéndez's deaths. Neighbor Pamela felt uneasy living near the crime scene. Marvin Lanone, a seasoned law enforcement officer, described the murders as one of the most brutal he'd seen in his 33-year career. Erik, 19, and Lyle Menéndez, 22, claimed they discovered their parents' bodies after returning from a movie. The police found the brothers outside, hysterical but with behavior that seemed exaggerated. Despite this, the police were initially kind to them. During interviews, Erik Menéndez repeatedly mentioned seeing smoke that night and later expressed surprise that neither he nor Lyle were arrested right away. Investigative journalist Robert Rand, who covered the case, recalled the shock surrounding the idea that two young men could commit such a violent crime, though it was hard to believe without a clear motive. When Rand met the brothers at their mansion, their carefree attitude unsettled him. At a memorial service at Princeton University Chapel, Lyle read a letter from his father, Jose, who expressed his belief in both sons and encouraged them to pursue honor and excellence. The brothers later explained their actions as part of upholding the family legacy, with Lyle quickly adopting a serious, business-driven persona to mirror their father and honor his achievements. After the murders, Erik and Lyle shocked many with their immediate, lavish spending. They purchased luxury items such as a Porsche, a Jeep, and Rolex watches, and Lyle even bought a restaurant. Erik abandoned his plans to attend UCLA and hired an expensive tennis coach. Their extravagant behavior quickly drew attention, leading investigators to suspect a financial motive. As their spending escalated, police grew suspicious, especially since in many family homicides, the culprit is often a relative. Although the brothers initially blamed the mafia, the investigation soon focused on them. Police found that the shotguns used in the crime were purchased using a stolen ID belonging to Lyle's roommate, though the weapons were never recovered. This evidence allowed prosecutors to move forward. On that basis, at 1:20 p.m., police arrested 22-year-old Lyle Menéndez at the family mansion, citing a financial motive as the brothers were set to inherit $14 million. Erik was expected to surrender upon returning from overseas. The case gained global media attention. Their Aunt Joan and grandmother struggled to believe the brothers could have killed their own mother. Lyle later described how, after the arrest, he took control, comforting Erik and focusing on surviving prison. Leslie Abramson, known for her exceptional legal skills, represented Erik Menéndez. Jill Lansing, a former public defender, was Lyle Menéndez's attorney. Lansing recalled her first meeting with Lyle in jail, where she expressed sympathy for his drastic change in lifestyle. Lyle responded that in some ways, being in jail was easier than living at home. The judge in the Menéndez case had previously presided over the Rodney King trial, which led to widespread outrage after the acquittal of 4 police officers charged in King's beating. The verdict triggered riots across Los Angeles, highlighting deep racial tensions. In the court case, the judge started the proceedings by greeting everyone and explaining that the day would begin with opening statements from both sides. The prosecution began their opening statement by explaining that they would prove Lyle Menéndez planned the murder of his parents for financial gain, pointing to the $650,000 life insurance policy. They argued the crime was premeditated and nearly flawless. The defense, however, focused on the brothers' fear of their abusive parents, describing years of violence and emotional trauma. Lyle and Erik, the defense claimed, were driven by a desperate need to stop the abuse, not by a desire for money. Both sides laid out starkly contrasting motives for the killings. From the outside, the Menéndez family appeared to be the ideal American success story. They were wealthy, and everyone was successful. Erik and Lyle expressed that their father came from Cuba in the hope of rebuilding everything he had lost during the revolution in Cuba. Then, he indeed built a very successful business. Erik defends his case, saying there was no need for them to kill their parents for money since they were already the sole inheritors. Dr. Jeremy Oziel testified that when Erik Menéndez first arrived at his office, he was highly agitated and depressed and was thinking of unliving himself. During their session, Erik confessed to Oziel that he and his brother had killed their parents. Erik detailed the difficult relationship with his father, describing him as controlling and impossible to please. He explained that their mother was included in the murder because she would have been a witness and was emotionally dependent on their father, believing she couldn't survive without him. Dr. Jeremy Oziel devised a plan to record the Menéndez brothers' confessions, feeling threatened by them. He testified that Lyle had menacingly asked Erik how they would kill Oziel after one session. Oziel informed his girlfriend, Judalon Smythe, about the confession, and she later reported it to the police after an argument with Oziel, where she also accused him of assault. Smith claimed to have eavesdropped on a session where the brothers confessed to the murders, leading to the eventual police investigation and arrests. Judalon Smith was originally a patient of Dr. Oziel. After telling her about the case, he had abducted, drugged, and held her against her will. On the morning of one of these, closed-door hearings, the LA County Sheriff's Office released a statement that said Erik and Lyle Menéndez had tried to escape that morning. So the Sheriff's Department went to each brother's cell, and they were allowed to do a search. In the course of searching the brothers' cells, the sheriff's deputies found a 17-page letter in Erik's cell that Lyle had written to Erik. And at the end of the letter, Lyle had written in big letters, "Destroy this after you read it." Lyle Menéndez wrote a letter in which he confessed to everything he and Erik had done. Erik admitted that he couldn't bring himself to destroy the letter because it was meaningful to him. Once the letter was discovered, both brothers were forced to confess their actions all over again, revealing the full details of the crime. During interviews with different people, Jose Menéndez was expressed as aggressive, abusive, and manipulative. Erik Menéndez expressed that, despite what many people might think, he does love and miss his mother deeply. During the court hearing, 25-year-old Lyle and 22-year-old Erik Menéndez sat quietly, fully aware that they faced the possibility of the death penalty if convicted. Lyle Menéndez took the stand and testified about the abuse he endured from his father as a child. He described how his father would force him into inappropriate situations, and when he told his mother, she dismissed his concerns, accusing him of exaggerating. Lyle also expressed deep remorse for having involved his younger brother Erik in similar situations. Erik Menéndez took the stand and testified about the abuse he experienced from his father, which began when he was 6 and continued for 12 years. He explained that the key event leading up to the murder was when he told his brother, Lyle, about the ongoing abuse. He described how his father manipulated him into believing the abuse was a form of care and that it was their secret. When Erik tried to resist, his father threatened him with a knife, saying he would kill him if he ever told anyone. Erik expressed that this manipulation and fear kept him silent for years. Erik described how revealing this information to Lyle was a pivotal moment in the events that eventually led to them killing their parents. Different people at that time took this as a manipulation technique. The Menéndez brothers are faking everything, and they are trying to cover up their murder by lying about being abused. Lyle Menéndez testified that he could sense something was wrong with Erik, who was visibly upset. After some coaxing, Erik revealed that their father was still abusing him. Shaken, Lyle confronted their father, calling him out on the abuse and threatening to go to the police and tell the family. However, their father dismissed the confrontation, telling Lyle that what he did with Erik was none of his business and that they should forget the conversation ever happened. Erik Menéndez testified that both he and his brother believed their parents were planning to kill them. In response, they bought shotguns for self-defense. The night of the murders, after an argument between Erik and his mother, their father instructed Lyle to go upstairs, which Erik took as a signal that their parents' plan was unfolding. Panicking, the brothers loaded their guns and burst into the room, shooting their parents. Afterward, they left to buy movie tickets to create an alibi before returning home and calling the police. During the trial, Erik Menéndez's lawyer aimed to secure a manslaughter conviction rather than first-degree murder. The defense's strategy was to argue that the brothers acted out of fear for their lives due to the long history of abuse from their parents. On the day of the verdict, the judge declared the jury to be hopelessly deadlocked. The jury informed the court that after extensive deliberation, they could not reach a unanimous decision. The Menéndez mistrials were declared in January 1994, but soon after, the media shifted its focus to the O.J. Simpson case, which dominated headlines following his June 1994 arrest. While Erik and O.J. shared the celebrity section of the prison, Lyle was on another floor, spending much of his time on the phone. Lyle formed a connection with Norma Novelli, who later wrote a book based on their conversations, which she recorded over 2.5 years. During this time, Lyle Menéndez admitted to being willing to lie if necessary to counter damaging testimony from psychologist Jerome Oziel. The prosecution highlighted the significance of the taped conversations between Lyle and Norma Novelli, claiming that these recordings would be detrimental to Lyle's defense. The second Menéndez trial began shortly after O.J. Simpson's acquittal, which some believe influenced the prosecution's approach and the attitude of Judge Stanley Weisberg. Weisberg, embarrassed by the lack of verdicts in the first trial, was determined to secure a conviction this time. He restricted the use of expert witnesses and limited the defense's claims of abuse, seeking to avoid the delays and ambiguity that marred the initial trial. The public and media scrutiny surrounding the case also heightened the pressure for a decisive outcome. Leslie was emotional and was trying to show the case was not being taken seriously and that the abuse they had endured was not being emphasized enough. The second Menéndez trial was significantly different from the first. It wasn't televised, which some believed allowed for a more private jury process. A major disadvantage for Lyle was that he did not testify, leaving gaps in foundational testimony. Key evidence, such as Lyle's childhood allegations of abuse, was excluded. The judge also didn't allow the jury to consider manslaughter, limiting their options to murder or acquittal. This narrowed defense strategy made it difficult for the jury to consider the abuse claims, ultimately favoring the prosecution. The second jury convicted Erik and Lyle Menéndez because they saw a different version of the case, with much of the abuse evidence from the first trial excluded. The prosecution's strategy aimed to secure murder convictions. However, when it came time for sentencing, the jury opted for life without parole instead of the death penalty, recognizing that despite the horrific nature of the crime, there were mitigating factors that warranted sparing their lives. There are now different sources in social media, and people are more educated on the case. People understand that the brothers are survivors of abuse. Erik and Lyle now express that they are grateful for the support they are getting from the public. They receive letters from different people supporting them. Leslie Abramson, Jill Lansing, and Dr. Jerome Oziel declined interviews for the documentary. Leslie Abramson expressed that she wants to move on from the case, noting that nothing can change the brothers' fate, which lies in the court's hands. In May 2003, Erik and Lyle Menéndez filed a habeas petition in an effort to overturn their murder convictions. The judge requested a response from the district attorney, and the brothers are awaiting a decision on their petition. And with that, the movie ends. We hope you enjoyed the video. Watch the next recaps on the screen, and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing recaps. See you in the next one.